A recall effort is now underway against Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson, the first recall attempt against the Seattle mayor since 2020.
New tonight, an effort to remove Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson from office is taking its next step. In less than 2 weeks, a judge will review the recall charges filed by a Seattle couple, a key hurdle before they can begin collecting signatures.
King County elections documents show the pair behind the push for a recall took issue with the removal of Chief Sean Barnes in the middle of the Byte of Seattle shooting investigation, the handling of CCTV cameras, as well as unaddressed crime in the North Aurora neighborhood and Chinatown International District.
Now this afternoon, I just heard back from the mayor's staff. They say they're aware that this paperwork has been filed at the election office. They say it does not appear to have merit for these recall charges.
Her socialist rhetoric vilifies employers, even while she continues to rely on them for revenue. The 73-year-old billionaire recently moved to Florida, saying he's in the retirement phase of his life, confirming Washington's policies are not the only reason why he left the state. This as Starbucks chose Tennessee as its new headquarters and laid off 61 corporate workers right here in Seattle yesterday.
So there's quite a process still to play out, but this poll suggests that there may be an appetite for this moving forward, should it get to the point of collecting signatures for a recall. So we'll put up some of the results here from Change Washington. This was conducted very recently, August 13 through 17, finding just 22% of Seattle voters approving of Mayor Wilson's job performance, 66% disapproval, and then 12% said they weren't sure.
Hearing scheduled in Seattle mayor recall effort as poll shows disapproval. We've now got a hearing scheduled on Democrat Socialist Katie Wilson, mayor of Seattle. Got that hearing scheduled. We got a new poll that shows vast majority of Seattle folks don't want her as mayor. She's also, since the first time since the Byte of Seattle mass shooting, she's come out and said why she shouldn't be recalled. Let's get into it. Here we go. So all that crazy stuff happened, and finally, Mayor Wilson has come out, and she's done an executive order on trying to speed up production of housing, which she has no ability to really impact that. She's trying to get more housing units into Seattle. Never going to happen. Never going to happen. More affordable housing. Never going to happen. And as she's doing that, we've got this great exchange with with a reporter where she basically says, well, but look at my affordable housing plan. Don't look at me being recalled. Let's watch that video. Here we go.
And with respect to the housing community, it's the first time that we've seen you in a couple of weeks to have a chance to ask you questions about other things. There's been a recall filed against you that you know has moved forward. This is your chance to respond to that recall. How do you respond to the allegations in that recall effort?
So that is a legal process that will be playing out. I'm focused on leading the city and on making it an affordable place for people to live, and that's the work that we're here to discuss today.
And Mayor, again, with all due respect to people in the room, we haven't seen you in a couple of weeks. We have to ask these questions. Again, there's an active investigation into the Byte of Seattle murders. There's still not been a person arrested for that. There's been public polling to suggest that in the wake of that, people would like to have a closed circuit television camera system expanded that I know that you've opposed in the past. 75% of the public says they want these things. The cameras that were on outside the Cowgirls Inc. that were on during the World Cup were turned off, and there was an unsolved shooting there as well. Does all of this now change your perspective on that issue, given those shootings and given the public polling suggesting that people want to have those cameras on?
So we're continuing to follow the course that I laid out earlier this year, which is that as we speak, there's an audit being conducted of privacy, data security, storage sharing practices for our CCTV system. We expect the results of that audit to be coming out, I believe, around the end of September. So that will be a decision point where we can share those results publicly and make a decision about whether to move forward with the expansion of the CCTV cameras.
I mean, oh, it's so brutal. Ask her a simple question. Oh, we've got an audit going. That ought to do it. Democrats, socialists, Democrats, liberals, whatever. Instead of actually doing the real work, hey, let's get an audit going. Let's do a study. Let's do, anything but the reality of, hey, most of the people in Seattle want you recalled. How do you respond to that? Well, we're going to do a study and the results will come out. And it's the same thing as her literally during this press conference. The press conference was, and this was yesterday, press conference was for her executive order that's ramping up production of housing, which never going to happen. It's going to have zero impact. It'll probably make it more expensive to build in Seattle. But, you got to let the Democrats kind of spin their wheels because that's what they do. And the way that we're going to be able to figure this out is, hey, Katie Wilson, during your time as mayor, did housing prices go up or did they go down? Oh, they didn't go up? Oh, okay. Anyway, so you're being recalled. How do you feel about that? Well, we're doing a study. A hearing on the merits of a recall petition filed against Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson is scheduled for August 31st. King County Superior Court, as a new poll showed a majority of voters want her to leave office. Okay, so you got the hearing. A judge just reviewed the petition, the recall petition, and said, yep, the people who filed it are voting citizens. Yep, it looks like they've got an adequate argument in there. Not that the argument was good or whatever for the reasons, basically public safety, that she should be recalled. And there was a couple of other things. They're basically just procedural. And so a judge looked at the petition and said, okay, literally was it written on a piece of paper kind of stuff? Yes, it was. Check. All right. And so they've got a hearing. August 31st, King County Superior Court. Will Katie Wilson be there? No, she won't. No, she won't be there. Because it's a procedural hearing, right? 9 a.m. hearing before Judge Patrick Oishi was scheduled Wednesday after the King County Prosecuting Office reviewed the petition by North Seattle couple Melinda Johnson and Dale Oosterud and forwarded to the Superior Court. Prosecuting Attorney's Office review is the first step in the review process. Hearing will determine whether there is sufficient evidence that the petitions meet the requirements of Washington state law for malfeasance or violation of an oath of office. So I know everybody wants her to be recalled, and I know everybody's on, she should be recalled. The folks here are not represented by legal counsel. Said they didn't have the money. They just basically wanted to get this on the books and see where it goes. So they're not going to be represented by an attorney. They did consult with an attorney who said, here's the direction you should go. And it's basically she should be recalled for what's going on Aurora Avenue, which is you got a bunch of pimps and prostitutes, just massive violence, human trafficking. You got that on Aurora. You got Pike and Pine at 3rd, the Blade, which we talk about, open air drug market. You got the open air drug market, massive amounts of violence, stabbings, shootings, you name it, in the International District. You had the cameras turned off after the World Cup. FIFA had another shooting outside Cowgirls, which is a nightclub. And there was one other thing. I can't even remember. Partridge in a pear tree of ways that the 5-hour delay of information to the people of Seattle when you got probably a couple of killers out there running around with illegal handguns. And so, these two folks from Seattle threw out this petition and said, well, we hope it sticks. Whether or not it will meet the requirements for malfeasance or violation of an oath of office, I do not think it will, unfortunately. So it's kind of one of those, wah, wah, wah. I don't think it will, especially in front of a King County judge, right? You got a lot of conservative judges in there? No, it's King County. Look around, read the room. I don't think this is going anywhere, but people are worked up. These polls are coming out. People are like, she should be recalled. Yeah, well, she should. And the reality are two wildly different things, right? Jacobson and Oosterud argue the mayor's mishandling of public safety issues meets the legal standard and provide sufficient grounds to remove her from office. I hope they're right. I don't think they are. I don't think she's done what meets the legal standard. Recall petition states that a 5-hour delay to hold a press conference killed 3 people, and all the other things I just mentioned all point to the mayor's failures. I think a judge is going to go, hey, the 3 places you mentioned, they've had crime since who knows when, since the 70s, whatever, maybe not the international district, because they basically just said, where can we have criminal activity in an open air basis and the constituents won't really push back? The international district, there we go, let's do it there. And so they've allowed this to happen. If the judge were to accept the petition as valid, the couple would have 90 days to gather 69,000 valid signatures to hold a recall. I don't think we get that far. If we get that far, I would be surprised. That's just my opinion, because even with legal counsel, getting this petition to meet the legal requirements for malfeasance or violation of oath of office ain't happening. I do not think it's happening. I will be pleasantly surprised, and I will eat my words and say, I was wrong. I was wrong. Because then we'd be keeping on going with the recall. But I think this is a try-for. I think this is a hope. Will there be more incidences that will happen down the road that would lead to a recall? I mean, we've already had a handful of, hey, what we're doing, what? What is going on now? Say what? We've had a handful of those, right? So to go down these further roads, maybe. Mayor Wilson's interim communications director, Dawn Schellenberg, didn't comment on the pending hearing on Wednesday. Wilson would also be allowed to bring a lawyer, but she's not going. Jacobson and Osterud are entitled to bring a lawyer to the hearing, but Jacobson said the effort is grassroots. She and her husband don't have the funds to bring legal representation. I'm surprised somebody didn't step in and say, hey, here's your attorney. Or an attorney just said, I'll take this one. But some of that has to do with, I don't think they have a case. You want to say that, oh, she's been terrible, but that doesn't necessarily meet the level of malfeasance, right? In an email on Tuesday, Wilson defended her public safety record, saying crime was down overall in the city, including on North Avenue, Aurora Avenue, and the Chinatown International District. Well, because they've been at all-time highs. And we've literally had neighbors on North Aurora Avenue put blockades in the road to keep the pimps from driving down, shooting people, and the Johns from doing their thing with the ladies in the cars. It's a mess. It's a mess. But is this on exclusively Mayor Wilson's watch? No, it's been going on for years. Defunding the police, been going on for years. You know, all these things work together to create this situation. But I think people now are looking at Katie Wilson and going, she needs to get out of here. And yeah, you're probably right, but who'd you vote for? People who put this petition together did not vote for Katie Wilson, but a whole bunch of other numbnuts in Seattle did. And you know what they're doing now? We need to get public safety back. We need to have Katie Wilson get thrown out of office. Well, you can't have it coming and going, right? You can't do that. So you got to pick one. This is your mayor. Enjoy. Meanwhile, a new poll by conservative-leaning organization Change Washington, released Wednesday, 60% of voters surveyed said Wilson should be recalled or resign. I think more than likely she has a couple more major events, has kind of a let's go Brandon Johnson nervous breakdown, and resigns. That would not shock me at all. And her excuse will be, I need to step down and spend more time with my family. That's always the standard one, right? Tear at the heartstrings of people with kids. Kids, yeah. You guys been following that Lindsay Clancy trial? Good Lord. Lady killed her 3 kids with an exercise band, then blamed postpartum depression. Not saying postpartum depression doesn't exist, but when you killed 3 of your children, and then a bunch of middle-aged women raised over $800,000 in her defense. Like, what are we doing? What has the world come to? You kill your kids? All bets are off. About 2/3 of the participants disapproved of her job performance. The most significant finding is not simply that Wilson is unpopular, it is that dissatisfaction has spread deeply among Democratic and independent voters. They don't even talk about the Republicans because they're just like automatically. You voted in a Democrat socialist into office, and not even an official one that just identifies as a socialist. What did you think would happen? We're not, and conservative people in Seattle aren't even going that far. They're just kind of like, whatever. You guys voted in a retard. This is what you get. And it's true. I mean, what did you think would happen when you elected Katie Wilson over a Bruce Harrell, who, I know, everybody thinks that Bruce Harrell was terrible as well, but good Lord, Seattle would be lucky to have Bruce Harrell back in office right now. Hey, Bruce, could you make a guest appearance for the rest of Mayor Wilson's term? According to the poll, 53% of Democrats say Wilson should be resigned or removed. Just 37% says she remain in office. This is your typical voter. Chief Barnes got booted. He negotiated a settlement worth $700,000. Seattle Mayor Wilson responds to recall effort, poll numbers asking for the CCTV system. That's what we just kind of watched. Wilson appeared publicly in Columbia City yesterday to sign an executive order aimed at speeding up housing construction and announced the creation of a housing production task force. Yet another task force to do a study so that in the future we can start to build cheaper homes. By the time these studies happen, inflation has already taken like a 6-7% bite, right? 'Cause a couple of years goes by. I mean, it's fantastic. Here's Como's survey. How would you describe Seattle's general direction overall? 1% said right track, wrong track, 97%, stuck in place, 3%. Now that adds up to 101%. So, folks at Como, maybe check your. It's stuck in place was probably rounded up to 3%, and right track was rounded up to 1. So, rounding error, right? Rounding error. And the elections were not rigged. Much of the questioning focused on issues that have emerged during the mayor's recent absence from public questioning. Mayor has stepped back for a couple of weeks while this recall is going on. Mayor stepped back, hasn't really said much about anything, but she is really tightening up her press conferences. You can hear how she's kind of regimenting them so that she doesn't get stuck doing a press conference, responding to something ad lib, and just basically shooting herself in the foot, because that is unfortunately what she has accomplished in office is some pretty awful, comments and things that appeared to be flippant at the time and attracted worldwide attention. Like, buy millionaires. That didn't age well. That didn't go over well. Wilson was asked about a recall effort filed against her and was given an opportunity to respond to the allegations. We watched that. So as a legal process that will be playing out, Wilson said, I'm focused on leading the city, making it an affordable place, yada, yada. And that's the work that we're here to discuss today. All right. Okay. So you're not going to really answer much of anything, but we're just going to go with this is what we're doing. I personally will not be there, Wilson said. I will be represented by counsel. Parents also came after Wilson abruptly removed Seattle Police Chief Sean Barnes from his position amid an unsolved murder investigation connected to a shooting at the Byte of Seattle. Seattle Police Chief Sue Rohr criticized the city's initial public response to the violence this week, and she basically said, hey, this was Sue Rohr. She was, I think she was former King County Sheriff, and then she was interim police chief when Adrian Diaz, Police Chief Diaz, said, I'm gay. I can't be sexually molesting women. Can't be sexually whatever it was, accused of whatever with the ladies in the Seattle Police Department. He was like, I'm gay. And then we had to get Chief Sue Rohr. Seattle is just this long, slow train wreck happening in real time because you've got leadership that's either a DEI hire or is just terrible. Terrible. I can't believe the mayor's office would have refused to do a public safety briefing, Rohr said Tuesday in an interview with Como News, calling the response a big communications failure. So, I mean, you've got that going on, and this is the inevitable result. Is you got a recall hearing, you got people saying, "I don't like what's going on in Seattle." Yeah, well, who'd you vote for there, numbnuts? Because not enough people voted for the right folks, and this is why politics in Seattle are so left-winged. Because you don't have enough responsible people taking charge and actually electing people that are adults. We're continuing to follow the course that I laid out earlier this year. Yeah, it was a course that was just audit underway to examine privacy. So literally, instead of actually doing something, we do an audit and we create a special interest inquiry. We put together a coalition of people from the community that all want affordable housing. We study it, and then we do this. None of which, and I'm going to do a full podcast on that, absolutely none of what the mayor brought up are actually going to make housing more affordable in Seattle. Because, the market is the market, and unless you're wildly subsidizing it with taxpayers' money, everything's going to keep going to the moon because you've restricted supply and you've restricted the ability to put up cheap houses for decades and decades and decades, because that is what a supermajority of Democrats do to any given state. Look at California. Look at Oregon. I mean, they just avoided outlawing hunting and fishing in Oregon. And in California, they're not going to be able to buy 70% of the car and truck automobile tires because they're going to this new tire system that is supposedly going to save $1 billion in gas costs, but it's going to jack up the price of tires for your vehicle. I mean, that's their new, climate pledge policy. So you got all this stuff that makes absolutely no sense. And then you got a little mayor recall thrown in the middle there. Despite the polling, there are strong feelings about this issue, Lynn said. Eddie Lynn, who represents the city's South Side council member, acknowledged the strong public debate over the technology. We're talking about cameras. And literally, we just had a shooting at the nightclub Cowgirls, which is, I've never been inside there because that's just kind of one of those nightclubs that makes me go, yeah, it's not really for me. You know what I mean? Just, it's a pickup joint and crazy stuff happens and shootings happen afterwards because somebody gets all worked up after somebody said, "I like to do your girl there," and then somebody whips out a gun and says, "Yeah, we'll take that." That was my gunshot. It's kind of a whip as well. But yeah, and the cameras are turned off that were on during the World Cup. Oh yeah, we turned those off. How come? Oh, because we're doing a study on it. Lynn also pointed to the impact of recent violence on communities in South Seattle. Rainier District. Yeah, well, you got gangbangers down there running around shooting each other. All of this gun violence talk, it is literally gang violence with guns. But nobody wants to point that out because then you'd have to look at the actual community and go, what are you guys doing? You got 15-year-old kids running around shooting people at the Byte of Seattle. And this is what you're doing? We're doing a study on top of a study on top of a, hey, maybe we'll turn the cameras back on. I don't know. We got a study coming out. Should come out by 2029. Whole thing is just recall bid targets Mayor Wilson. Organizers need about 70,000 signatures. This is the ongoing deal. The signatures. We're all looking at the signatures. But that I don't think we even get that far. Number one, because this is Seattle, it has to go in front of a judge. The judge is going to go, I think she's doing a good job. We're not going to hear that. We're going to hear, well, they're going to look at the facts in front of them as they're laid out. And I don't think there's anything in there that pinpoints Mayor Wilson has broken the level of standards that would actually allow a recall to happen. We've only had the last recall in Washington State of a mayor was of Seattle was 95 years ago. 95 years ago. And from I've kind of read up on them a little bit, and the reasonings were they were terrible mayors. We had a couple of mayors get recalled. They were terrible mayors. They made some terrible decisions. Mayor Katie Wilson, she's a Democrat socialist, just a socialist. She's making terrible decisions. But are they enough to get us over that hump? And the answer is no. But we'll find out in a couple of weeks, right? We'll find out in a couple of weeks. Hey, are we going to vote on this? Or after we get the 69,000 signatures, can they get the 69,000 signatures? That's another big, everybody's up in arms. Everybody's like, oh, this is terrible. But do you have a quarter of the population in Seattle willing to sign a petition saying toss her? Quarter of the voting public who voted for Mayor Wilson. Do you have that? Probably not. So there's layer after layer after layer. I see your guys' comments all the time. She needs to be pulled from office, needs to have a recall effort. Recall her. She's terrible. She's awful. She doesn't know what she's doing. And I don't disagree with you. But the actual mechanics it takes to get somebody tossed from office, basically anywhere, are such that this is going to be a very difficult thing to get done. And I don't think it gets done on these set of issues. Maybe down the road, something else will happen. People are like, recall. We'll have round two. That's where I think we sit. I don't think there's any judge in King County that would say, oh, yeah, we got to get her out of here. Not happening. Not happening. When we get that information, I'll podcast it for you. Thanks so much for joining. Love to have you subscribe. Hit that notification bell. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.